Got it. All right, we might be live, but I'm going to wait for the browser to load. And I'm going to grab this link. So hi, if you guys are seeing us, we're going to give a few minutes. We've got 2 more minutes. We're going to give folks a chance to join, and I'm going to, there is the link. Okay. And I'm going to paste this in here. You guys are going to see some of my process behind the scenes here. There's the link. We are live. We are streaming. If you're here and you're live, give us a thumbs up or a comment. If you are watching the replay, go ahead and comment replay or hashtag replay for me so more people get a chance to see this, and let us know that you are watching. We have, again, a couple more minutes, so we're going to give people a chance to join before we get rolling here. Super excited for today's topic. As somebody who has ventured into coaching as a therapist, it's definitely interesting to me to talk about. And I love hearing about what that looks like, especially when you are tackling therapeutic related issues and how that all works. So we have Carly Hill here, and she's great at this stuff. This is what she does. So it's going to be really exciting to hear her talk about it. I know a lot of people I talk to, a lot of therapists I talk to are looking at this option as a way to get away from, being in the chair so much and being in that one-on-one place and really expanding their opportunities and their client base and their reach and their impact. So there's a lot of reasons that therapists look into expanding into coaching to, achieve a lot of different things. So I know a lot of folks are interested in this, and I know this is a hot topic right now. Really excited. Okay, it's 9:00. We're going to go ahead and get rolling. So hi, everyone. Welcome to this chat. If you don't know me, I'll just do a quick intro. I'm Audrey Shane. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm in Northern California. I have a small private practice, fully online, and I coach therapists in business for private practice, as you all know in my group here. Like I said, I'm really interested in talking to Carly today about this shift from therapist to coach and what that looks like and what it means and what it can be for you. I will also be coming into her group later this week. It's Thursday at 8:30 Pacific. And we'll be talking about what it has been like for me to run 2 businesses, to make the transition, and some of the different things I've had to do, some of the challenges I've faced. And so you don't want to miss that conversation. It's going to be great. If you're considering adding coaching or venturing into coaching, I highly recommend checking that conversation out in her group. There is a link in the description. We'll also post a link in the comments to that. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Carly. I'll be monitoring the comments. So if you guys have questions along the way, please pop them in the comments. Let us know you're here. Again, hit replay if you're catching the replay. I am going to turn it over to Carly, have her introduce herself, and then we're going to get rolling and just have this chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Audrey.
Yeah.
Your voice is so calming too. I feel like I could just relax in this moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Carly Hill. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a Reiki master. Most importantly, my MO is being a business strategist for therapists specifically. So mainly psychotherapists, sometimes occupational therapists, speech therapists, but those therapists who are looking to transition into the coaching world or maybe add it, right? They don't want to get rid of their private practice at all, but how to navigate these waters ethically, legally, protect your license, and then create, market, and sell your signature coaching program. So creating a recorded course, switching into the one-to-many model and doing group coaching so you can leverage your time, get paid for your knowledge, and what that really looks like from a business perspective.
Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful. So I know we have a lot of common questions that people come with. We'll start with like the number one question is, what is the difference between therapy
Yeah.
and coaching? Because it can get kind of muddy, I think, sometimes.
Totally. Yes. And you're exactly right. This is the number one question because most people Google this and they get even more confused. They just go down a rabbit hole. There's so many nuances,
Yeah.
right? So it's confusing for us to understand, and it's even confusing for our clients to understand. So we really need to stand firm in our definition so that we don't confuse our clients.
Mhm.
So I always say the easiest definition to adapt as your own is therapy is working with medical necessity. You are treating them for medical necessity. It's like textbook DSM criteria, and you're treating them for that. Coaching is working with a more situational, non clinical, less severe problem. You're not treating them for medical necessity.
Mhm.
So that's the main difference. It's not about like people get weird about like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, am I doing coaching or am I like doing therapy? It's like, it's not really what you're doing. It's about the severity of the issue coming in. And are you treating them for medical necessity or not?
Right.
Because you can use CBT, DBT, EMDR in your coaching business practice. And when we hear those things, we think
Therapy.
therapy,
Right.
right? So if it's a more situational, non-clinical, less severe problem, you can use those modalities in your coaching business. That
So
makes sense?
it's less about what I'm doing and more about what I'm addressing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Because not to make it more confusing, but client could be meeting criteria for a diagnosis and
Right.
you not be treating them for that diagnosis.
Right. Well, and again, to make it more confusing, as a therapist, I often do coaching related activities, and I might even address less severe non-clinical stuff in therapy. But if I'm doing coaching, then the clinical medical necessity stuff is off limits.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yes. You're exactly right.
Right. Yeah. So the delineation has more to do with what the client is coming with rather than what I'm doing per se.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the
That's a good way of
severity
thinking
of the
about it.
issue coming in.
Right.
Yeah. And like I have a therapist and coach who I've worked with, and she has a program to help women feel confident getting back into the dating world. So they have come out of toxic relationships, and she helps them boost their self confidence and get back into the dating world. So a lot of those women who have come out of DV relationships could be meeting criteria for PTSD.
Right.
She's not treating them for PTSD. She is not their therapist. Often they'll have their own therapist, but her coaching program is very specific to helping them boost self-confidence and get back into the dating world.
Yeah. Very specific
Right?
outcome.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And like you said, if they have these criteria where they meet medical necessity for something, they will have their own therapist or be referred to a therapist for that specifically, because the coaching itself does not solve that problem. It's not meant to. It can't.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So with that, I think that then the question comes is like, okay, well, if that's the difference, then what do I need to do to protect my license if I'm going to continue being a therapist? And some of the things that I might do in therapy also look like coaching, but I'm going to do this coaching thing where it's specifically just coaching. How do I protect my license?
Yeah. It's a great question. And this is probably the second most popular question because everybody works so hard for their license.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few things that you do have to do. And you want to make sure that you have the peace of mind that you're doing it the right way.
Right.
So if you have private practice, you're going to have separate business entity. So do not slap coaching onto your private practice.
Yeah.
Separate business entity. So like separate LLC, for example, right?
Yeah. Right.
Which means separate bank accounts. You're going to be doing your taxes separate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be tracking your expenses separate.
Mm-hmm.
Different insurance. So in private practice, you have your malpractice insurance. In your coaching business, you'll have professional liability insurance. It's also known as errors and omissions sometimes. So depending on your policy and provider, you can either add it on to your current malpractice insurance, or you'll have a separate policy.
Gotcha.
Typically, it's separate policy.
Yeah.
Right. So you just want to make sure you have the professional liability insurance. the name of the game is keep everything separate. So
Yeah.
you can't take a coaching client to a therapy client or a therapy client to a coaching client.
Mhm.
So keep those separate. They can't unsee you as their therapist. And
Right.
this one can get a little nuanced because there's all these like one-off situations that could happen. It's like, well, if you have recorded course, can your therapy client get access to that? Right.
Right.
And there's different answers depending on what the actual situation is
Right.
at
Right.
hand. But everything can be figured out. Right.
Right.
So those are the main things. Marketing gets a little nuancy too. So do you need a separate website? That's like a common question. It's not a hard and fast black and white rule that you need a separate website. Attorneys will tell you just for best practice, separate website, just keep everything separate, right?
Right.
So if you do happen to have it on the same website, you don't want your client to be confused. So
Mhm.
if you have a coaching service tab, like make it your different branding and different colors, maybe even different fonts, maybe even have a disclaimer on there that like coaching is similar in nature to psychotherapy, but it's very different, right? Like just dial it in that it's different, it's separate.
Yeah. Be really, really forward about the fact that this is a separate, different thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Uh, but I would say typically you're getting on a consult call with anybody, whether they're coming into your private practice or they're coming into your coaching business, and you can use your clinical discernment at that time. Are they a fit for therapy or are they a fit for coaching? Because client doesn't get to decide this, and although the stigma I think has gotten better, oftentimes people can only conceptualize getting help under the umbrella of coaching, when
Right.
in reality, they need therapy,
Mm.
right? So, or vice versa, right? Like maybe they really don't need therapy and they're a better fit for your coaching business.
Mhm. Mhm.
So using that consultation time to really figure out like, are they a fit for my private practice or are they a fit for my coaching business? Or are they a fit for my coaching business and should I refer out so they also have a therapist?
Right. Yeah. So having like part of protecting your license is having a really clear understanding of how do I differentiate which path to take a potential client, regardless of how they contact me, whether they contact me through my coaching practice or my therapy practice. How do I then decide where to funnel them so that it's appropriate for what they're trying to solve?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that could be intimidating when maybe you haven't started your coaching business yet. But when you have your coaching business, you clearly know your niche and who you're helping and how you're helping them. And maybe even you have a course or a signature coaching program. It becomes a lot easier to make that discernment
Right.
of what they're a better fit for.
Right. Well, and this gets into that other question of like, well, do I have to stop being a therapist in order to have to do the coaching if it's similar or if it's in the same, arena? Um, we kind of talked about like how like running two businesses, but like how does that even work? So that idea of like, do I have to stop? Can I keep going? And what I'm hearing you say is no, you can still be a therapist.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
figuring out how you separate things.
exactly. Yeah. So I would say majority of people don't want to stop being a therapist and they love their private practice if that's what they have. Their intention is usually just to reduce their clinical hours in their private practice. And their coaching business it's almost like a passion project, money maker, extension of themselves. And I see it like people say it kind of becomes like their baby. Like they
Yeah.
love it. They're having so much fun. It's a creative process. They're impacting more lives. They're making more money, and they can reduce their back to back one to one clinical hours in their private practice.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because that's a big piece of it. And if we're going to be just call it what it is, like if we're trying to reduce our one-to-one hours because there is a cap on our capacity to earn on a one-to-one basis, we do deal with a lot of burnout. And if we're seeing a lot of clients for years and years on end, that can really impact our nervous systems, that can impact our ability to live well. And like, it really does cap our capacity to earn an income, especially if we're insurance based. um, we really run into like a lack of control about our finances and growing as a professional in our financial well-being. And so I do hear a lot of therapists talking about, I need to get away from one-on-one, but how do I do that? And coaching offers that one-to-many model where you get to have like this more creative way of helping more people. And I've heard too, a lot of people say, like, I see this a lot in my practice, and I could see how this would work well in a more of a program. And so they really struggle with that idea of like, how do I turn this into something that's more consumable, where I'm not just doing it with one person and one person, where maybe it's not a group therapy thing, but they could see how it could turn into something bigger that could impact more people. Or maybe they've done a program or a recorded course or something themselves, and they're like, I could do that too. And so it does give you the opportunity, like you said before, to leverage your knowledge to change how you make money per hour, where it's not like dollar per hour anymore. It's actually dollar per service, per this like bigger thing. And you get to impact more people with it, and you get to be creative and you get to do all these fun things with it.
It's a win-win. Yes. So a lot of people say like, well, why can't I just do this in my private practice? Right. So there is a way to create a course or do like group therapy in your private practice. Right. But oftentimes therapy, like people in their quote unquote private practice are doing coaching already without even fully recognizing it. Right. So then it would just make more sense if that was the case. And that was me in my private practice, to do it in a coaching way and create this coaching signature program, because you're not limited to your license and you can impact people nationwide, worldwide.
Right.
Yeah. And if you're not treating them for medical necessity, or they don't need to be treated for medical necessity, they don't want to go to therapy for 3 years at $150 and spend 36 grand. They want to come into your signature 3-month program, if that's how long it is, for 3 months. And it's like very hyper niche and specifically curated for their population, their problem, to get faster, easier results with this proven system, with people on the same exact journey as them, with these like-minded people, for $3,000. Right.
And
it just makes sense.
It might sound like a lot. I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up, is they're like, $3,000, that's a lot of money for a 3-month program. But when you put the context of like it, if you're looking at it within the context of it can actually shorten, maybe truncate their need for therapy, or change how therapy works, or even augment therapy in a way that produces faster results, it potentially actually saves them money. Even though for us, it feels like, oh my gosh, $3,000, that's a lot of money. But it's like, actually, when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, that actually that calculates out really nicely.
Yeah. And you have to understand, the sales psychology and be able to overcome their objections, right? And also have like high ticket sales is a different beast in itself. So having a best in class bomb.com offer where you've thought of every single deliverable, it's the A to Z. And instead your client is like, whoa, I'm getting all of this for this, sign me up. It's a no-brainer for them. So there's an art and a science to creating a bomb offer, and then also understanding sales psychology so that you can close the sale at this high ticket price and it will make sense for your client and they're not going to get sticker shock.
Yeah, there's a huge mindset aspect to this around like, because I hear a lot of conversations about coaches kind of like being kind of sharky and predatory, and they're charging a lot of money for not a lot of substance. And yes, that exists. That totally exists. Of course it exists, right? But when we talk about creating something as therapists, I know, like in my heart, I know that every single therapist out there that wants to create something really, really valuable. And they're going to put more in it than anyone else. They're going to put so much more in it, and they're probably not going to charge enough for it. And by enough, I mean enough to make the business model work for them, where they're actually achieving the goal of earning more while working less, right? because we're afraid of becoming that predatory coach who's not giving enough value for the money, right? And so, I think that's something that from a mindset perspective, if you're going to venture into coaching, there's a lot of work to be done there because you do have tremendous value. You bring tremendous value. You're going to put tremendous amount into your program. And if your goal is to earn more while working less, there is a certain amount of money that needs to be charged in order to achieve that, because it's going to take work to get the clients. It's going to take work to market and sell the course. We don't just make something valuable, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but you don't just make something valuable and expect people to buy it. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
There is a whole different system to sell programs and courses that looks way different than therapy.
Yeah. And you're right, the mindset piece. I mean, 80% of business is mindset, right? And I feel like there's a lot of undoing that we have to do as therapists. I feel like in many different ways, we've kind of been brainwashed, right? Like, don't be seen, don't self-disclose. Like, so then when you put yourself out there, because I would say 90% of us are our own ideal client, right? Like, we had to walk ourselves through something. Who we're helping is close to home in one way or another, right? So then we like put our brand story out there and we share our story, and it can feel wrong, right? Because of what we're taught. Right. And then even the rejection piece, to your point, like, we don't just like, it's not just like you create something and then all of the clients flood in, right? Or typically, like in private practice, like people are knocking on your door because shit is hitting the fan, right? Where in coaching it's a little bit different. And the marketing piece and how you attract clients and this client attraction lead generation system is different waters. So it can bring up all sorts of feelings and mindset shifts that need to happen. Yeah. Nobody got into the therapy field to make money. So they're always afraid that they're going to come off as like salesy or like sleazy, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's so much, it's so nuanced, and there's so much conversation to be had around that. And I think it's an important one. It's an important conversation to keep going, because we can't get stuck at the part where we're saying, oh, we're charging $3,000 for a program, and just stop there. We have to actually like talk through like what's happening in your body. Do the therapist thing. Like, what's happening in your body? What's happening in your mind? Why does that feel like a lot? What are you afraid of? Right. And then how can we resolve that in a way that allows you to actually achieve the goal you set out to achieve by creating this thing? I wanted to back up for a second because something popped into my head earlier. I've talked to a few of my coaching clients who are like, I want to do this coaching thing. I want to expand out. And we do have a conversation about, do you want to run a second business? Do you want to do lead generation? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And some of them say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do any of that. That sounds awful. And so in some cases, we talk about, okay, well, if you want to do this, you can do this in your therapy practice. You are limited to your state. You can do all of this under your therapy practice, but you are going to be limited to your state of license. And so if that's okay with you, go forth and do that. I think the cool part is being able to make the decision about, do I want to grow this big and go nationwide and attract a large audience? Is my niche so specific that I need to attract a national audience? Like, how do I want to run this? And I think that's the other piece, is that you have a choice, right? You don't have to have a second business if you want to do some sort of coaching concept in your private practice, but you have to operate under your license if you are going to do that way under one business. And so I think some therapists get stuck there as well, because they think, well, if I'm going to do coaching, then I have to do this other thing. And it's like, there is a way to make it fit, but there are a lot more guidelines you have to follow. And so don't let that stop you. Look at which version you want to do, and then make an informed decision about how you want to move forward. And I think being able to understand like what the reality of running two businesses is like, it gives you the opportunity to choose that. And it's really fun. Like, yes, it comes with challenges, but I can tell you, it's really fun to have this separate thing that I can do a lot more with. And so it opens up so many possibilities when you go into a separate business, which leads me to that next piece. You teach therapists how to do this. So tell me a bit more about what you teach, because there are different ways to go about this. You have a specific approach that you take to going into coaching. What is that?
Mhm. Yeah. So everything that I teach is what I use in my own business, right? So like I'm essentially teaching therapists turn coach how to create their own signature coaching program and replicate my exact business model. So I have a 3-month program, and your program doesn't have to be 3 months, right? Like I feel like there's something to be said about a program being too long or being too short. So I feel like 3 months is a good sweet spot, but sometimes it's 8 weeks or sometimes it's 4 months, whatever it is. Right. So I have a 3-month program called Therapist to Coach Accelerator, and I have a recorded course. And all recorded courses is PowerPoint slides, a recording of you teaching the PowerPoint slides. People get caught up in that, right? And it can seem like intimidating.
Right.
I have 3 group coaching calls a week. That could look like more, that could look like less, depending on how big your audience is, right? And you can tailor it and change it as things go on. And then I have a private Facebook group where all the female clinicians who are in the program can support each other in between coaching calls. People typically love this.
Yeah.
So this is exactly what they're doing within their niche, whether they're doing relationship coaching, health and wellness of some sorts. Like it's the coolest thing for me to experience, like these niches that these therapists are working with, because
Right.
even if, example, like they're all working with moms, they're doing it in a different way. Or even if their niche is like almost identical, they have a different method or they have a different story. And it's just goes to show there's room for everyone, right? Nobody can do what you do, how you do it.
Right. Well, how many
So
therapist business coaches are there? There's plenty to choose from, right?
exactly.
Right.
Yes.
We're all a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. So collaboration over competition too. Just have to say that, right? Hence why we're here today.
Yeah.
But recorded course, group coaching calls, and then an added support component, whether that's Foxer, whether that's email support, whether it is a private Facebook group. It's this hybrid model that helps somebody reduce their clinical hours, leverage their time, but also sell at a high ticket price.
Right.
Because you have so much value in here. It's not just recorded course alone. Like recorded course alone, I think you could sell for like 300, 500, like maybe $1,000, depending on what it is, right? But with high ticket, starting off $1,000 to $2,000 and upwards from there, when you have recorded course, when you have group coaching calls, and then you have that added support, it just feels good for the client.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm teaching them, is that's end goal for them. That's big picture. And within my recorded course, I teach them the difference between therapy and coaching, how to protect your license. Here's your coaching contract. It's attorney approved. It has mandated reporting and informed consent because we're still held to our ethics. So going back to protecting your license, right?
Right.
And then it's niching down, figuring out, well, who do you help? How do you help them specifically? Most people don't have marketing issues. They have messaging issues.
Mhm.
And then figure out, well, what are you offering them? What are all the deliverables inside your program? What are your bonuses? What are your guarantees? How is the perceived value so high that they're going to be like, whoa, I'm getting all of this for this? Sign me up.
Right. Right. Yeah.
What do you
Sometimes
put
it's
in
hard
it?
to like put that into words, because you're like, I know they're going to get a lot out of this, but how do I actually like say it? And then you said the word guarantee, which is that's a scary word for therapists, right? That we have this idea that we can't guarantee anything. And it's like, well, I can guarantee you that I'm going to show up present and I'm going to give you, my full self. I can guarantee that I'm going to be fully present to the extent that I'm capable every session, right? That I can guarantee.
Yeah,
And so there are guarantees that we can give. It's figuring out how to word them.
exactly.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, you have to have a guarantee with high ticket sales. It lowers the risk. It makes it a no-brainer offer for them.
Right. And you can be genuine and authentic. Like you don't again, you're not guaranteeing something that they aren't going to get. I don't tell people in practice by design that I guarantee that you're going to sign 10 full fee clients. Like I don't do that, because that I can't guarantee. But there are a lot of other things that I can guarantee that you're going to get out of that program.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. So I help them come up with the guarantee and what that could look like for their niche and their people, right? Marketing. How do we do that? right? I teach organic marketing, not paid advertising, not until later. Then I teach
Right.
paid advertising, right?
Mhm.
So I think there's an order of operations of doing things the smart way,
Mhm.
right? So does that answer your question? It's pretty much the
Yeah.
A to Z of how to add coaching, protect your license, and then create, market, sell, deliver your signature coaching program
Right. Well,
and
and
getting paid to deliver it.
yeah, and that's the other piece is that you're here, you're here to get paid to deliver. And so you're structuring it in a way that the money makes sense with the time investment that you're creating. And there's a heavy investment on the front end. And I think this is also the piece that sometimes trip people up a little bit, is that there is a heavy time investment on the front end, right? You're investing in creating something that's going to generate income later. And it's, when we start private practice, we have that heavy front end investment. I have found personally that coaching has a bigger front end investment because I'm creating more stuff, actual physical stuff, the recorded content, the course, I'm doing more tech. And so I think one of my experiences, I'll talk more about this when we talk, is that when I started the coaching business, I kind of had this expectation that it would be kind of the same investment on the front end as the therapy practice. And I realized just how small, even though we all think it's really big, I realized just how small the investment is to start a therapy practice actually is. And so I think sometimes we get shocked by that too, of like, oh, there's so much to do and I'm not going to see a return for a while yet. And so that can be a bit of a barrier too to getting started. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're exactly right. And I think this is why people hire coaches.
Yeah.
So they can do it faster, they can do it easier, they can do it with a proven system, and they can kind of collapse that timeline, right?
Absolutely.
I
did
this
that.
is why my program, it's an accelerator. I'll tell you, most programs that exist like this, they're a year long.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm like, give me my checklist, tell me what I need to do. That's very much how I like to learn. And that's very much how I like to teach. So I call it like trim the fat, cut the fluff, and just like tell me what to do next, and then next, and then next.
Yep.
So
get there.
Very strategy oriented. I mean, mindset's a huge piece, but I'll tell you, when I first created this program, like there was like this much mindset. There was like hardly none, because I invested in so many business coaching programs and they kept feeding me all this mindset stuff. I'm like, I mean, everybody can use mindset work. I'm like, but I know I can do it. And I believe in myself and I understand all of that. Like, I just need, like, tell me what check mark I need to do next. Right.
Right. So you have it's a very like, get in, get it done. And if you need the mindset stuff, cool. But like,
it's there.
This is like the meat.
Yeah. Meat and potatoes.
Yeah. Meat and potatoes. You can have we'll add some salad, but
Yeah.
So in your experience, as you've been doing these programs, what would you say is like the hardest thing for therapists when they're getting started with coaching? What's the hardest piece they run into? Of course. It tends to be the same in therapy world. So
yeah. Yeah, because it's the foundation of your business. You have to spend time on it. I think we're used to solving every problem under the sun, and or like morphing into whoever's in front of us, right? Also, it brings up emotions. Like, we're multi-passionate. Our hearts want to save the world, so we don't want to alienate anyone. And then we think if we pick this niche, it's going to be our niche for forever. And then, oh my gosh, and then I just don't pick a niche, right? Or you pick a niche and then you're like, oh, well, like maybe their niches are better than mine, and like theirs are more marketable. And it's like, it's just this whole thing. So it's actually my favorite thing to help with. I feel like it's such like a puzzle piece to figure out. I have a 45-minute training in my course that walks them through the process of figuring out exactly who they help and how they help them. We still have conversation about it after, but it's such a breath of fresh air when you figure it out. Like, I always joke, like the red carpet rolls out. Like, you can actually apply all the marketing and all the other things that, you're supposed to do next, because it's plug and play. Right. But you can't even skip to those parts until you figure out what your niche is.
Right. Yeah. It's like the path illuminates in front of you when you're like, that's it. That's what I'm doing. And suddenly things start to really become clear. Yeah. So a couple of last things I think I want to hit in our time together. One, I think the tech can be really overwhelming. And then I think the marketing and like getting clients can be overwhelming. So let's start with the tech.
Okay.
Because it's different than in therapy world. That's pretty straightforward, relatively speaking.
Mhm.
The tech can be a little different. They call it, what is it called? A tech stack is often a
Mhm.
term that's used.
Mhm.
What's your tech stack, right? So tell me a little
Mhm.
bit about what tech you recommend.
Yeah, good question. And I'll first say I'm a big fan of not overcomplicating things.
Same.
So you don't need all the tech and all the bells and whistles to begin with. Like you can literally start with basically nothing and you can be okay and you can get by and then you can add things on as you need them, right? And only if you want to. So it also depends on your budget,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't need the $200 all-inclusive platform per month if you don't have that in your budget and you're just starting off, right? Like you could do it the free way, but
Mhm.
maybe you want to find a happy medium where you pay for something and you make it a little bit easier, but you know, it's a little bit easier than the all-inclusive $200 platform.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there's something for everybody is what I first want to say, but I will answer your question on like what tech I use and what I recommend. So I think that if you're creating a recorded course, your course is going to need a home,
Mhm.
right? It needs to live somewhere. So the free way, and this is how I very first created my first recorded course, is I put it on Google Drive and I just emailed it to my clients.
Yeah. I've heard a few people say that that's how they started.
So like that's your free way,
Yeah.
right? If you're creating your PowerPoint slides and you record them and like, how do you record? Okay, you could get a system like Screencast-O-Matic or Vimeo or Camtasia or whatever. There's different places that you can record. Or if you know how to use Zoom,
Yep.
literally pull up Zoom with yourself, hit the share screen, share your PowerPoint, and just hit record and
Yep.
start recording. And then
Yep.
you could literally just email that to them. Okay,
Mhm.
that's like the easiest way.
Mhm.
But then you could also use like Vimeo, for example, right? And you could use that to record your PowerPoint and
Mhm.
or Google Slide. It doesn't really matter, same thing. And then you could upload that to a hosting platform.
Right.
So Teachable is probably the cheapest. And then you have maybe like Thinkific, which is middle. Kajabi is probably the most popular.
Yeah. And then
Uh,
Thrivecart just came out with a Learn platform that I've
okay.
heard good things about. And
Yeah.
they have a lifetime that's like really inexpensive right now.
I'm really curious if Thrivecart is actually Go High Level.
I
So
don't know.
okay, so Go High Level is the system that I use. And then everybody
Mm.
white labels Go High Level and they have
Oh,
their own agency version. So
oh,
like
interesting.
there's Funnel Gorgeous. I use CRM Done Better. So I feel like anybody says like, oh, there's this new cool, platform, whatever. And I look at it and I could see like screenshots of what it is. I'm like, oh, it's Go High
Oh,
Level.
yeah, check it out. Because they have a lifetime deal. I've got one of my coaching clients is looking at it for her program because it's a lifetime buy-in and you get it for lifetime and then you don't have a monthly
And
and
that's what
it's
I did with
integrated with their
mine.
cart. Right. Same.
That's what I did with mine too. So I'll have to look into it. I feel like
Yeah.
somebody
Check
told
it
me
out.
about this recently,
Yeah.
but it it is, if we're talking about the same thing, if we're talking about Go High Level, which is what I use, the
Right.
agency version that I use is called CRM Done Better.
Nice.
And CRM is customer relationship management system for those who don't know, right? Client relationship management system. And it's a one-stop shop where you can host your course, you can do email marketing,
Oh, that's nice.
it replaces Calendly, so you have calendar. You can track your sales pipeline, so you can see like how many warm leads you have, how many cold leads you have, how many hot leads. Do you need to follow up with so and so? And you can task yourself to follow up with them,
That's
right?
really nice.
Email marketing, and then all of your automations.
Right.
So your automations is really what happens behind the scenes where it looks like you have a team of 10, but really you have a team of 2. And it's like anything that you want to automate and to happen, when person clicks on this button, have this happen, or when person clicks on this, send them an email that says this, and then
Mhm.
send them a 24-hour reminder that says this, and you just like set it up once
It's
and
done.
it's just set up and it's done. And
Mhm.
that's really how you scale
Right.
it
Mhm.
and go big time, is when you're organized in this way. But that would be overwhelming for people when they're just figuring out their niche and they're figuring out, you know, how they work with people, or they're just creating their course. Like they don't need funnels and websites and automations and all the bells and whistles and things.
Nope. No.
Do
And
that
if
later.
you try to do that all at the beginning, it becomes a mountain. And you also create things that maybe aren't useful, right? And so it's really that idea of like, what do I need to do first? And then it will tell me what I need to do next. The system will tell me, oh, this is what you need next. This is what you need next.
Mhm.
And so I think that combination of like having someone to walk you through and say like, cool, so you're here, here's what you need to look at next. It helps give you that, like, pave that way for you where you're not kind of floating, which I think, that was one of my experiences, kind of floating and being like, I'm not sure what to do next now that I have this stuff. And so getting a coach and really working with somebody gave me that like clear of like, okay, this is what you need to be thinking about next. These are the
Yeah.
next pieces you need to create and develop. Um, and there is a new language to it, right? So I think part of that barrier is learning the new language, the different acronyms, the different pieces and how they work together. And that can be really overwhelming at first.
Mhm.
And so it's not that you have to have it all figured out right away. It's that you can figure it out a little at a time as you go.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't overcomplicate things. Trust the process
Mhm.
and do it in the order of operations that makes sense. Like that was a huge mistake I made, at the beginning of my business journey was doing things out of order and like, thinking I wanted to write a book first or do a podcast first or even turn on paid advertising first or hiring a team first, right? When like other things weren't necessarily figured out. Like
Right.
thinking you need a website first. And it's like, that's always the first thing people think. It's like, okay, I'm starting a coaching business. I need a website. Well, do you
Mhm.
know who you help and how you help them and what
What you're
you're even
offering.
offering them? Like you don't even know what to put on your website,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you
Right.
don't need a website to sell and to
Hmm.
start, but it is an asset in your business and you will want it
Right.
at a certain point in time.
Right. Someone
Yeah.
brought up Wix has a course platform now, apparently.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. A lot of, I knew
Yeah. Someone
Squarespace
did tell me
also
that.
does too. Yeah, Squarespace also
Yep.
has video course platforms and paywalls and things like that. So
Yeah.
a lot of people are dipping into it. A lot of companies are dipping into the course hosting, you know, arena. I think, the one thing I'll say, and I think, like you said, there's options for every level, is that there is a sweet spot between how much something gives you and how much it costs.
Hmm.
And much like I talk about with like EHR selection, is you don't want to compromise features for price, but that doesn't
Hmm.
mean you need the most expensive thing. And so it's figuring out like, how can I consolidate as much as possible? Because as somebody who has, looking back, I think there's part of me that wishes I would have chosen a different course hosting platform that was a little bit more integrated,
Hmm.
um, because now I'm having to piece some things together and I'm missing some of the automations that you talked about, some of the lead tracking that you talked about that wasn't important at first, but is
Hmm.
now. And the idea of switching over is daunting.
Hmm.
And so I think there is, really looking at, and again, this is where coaching can help, is looking at where you are, where you want to be, and planning for the future in a way that works for your budget. And it's sort of that blend of like, what do I need now versus what am I going to need a year from now? Not 10 years from now, but a year from now.
Yep.
And how can I make a decision based on that that's going to make things easier for me later?
Exactly.
There's a fine tuning sweet spot for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why I like go high level because it is a one-stop shop. But I'll tell you, in like $200 a month, or I bought the lifetime, so I don't even know what that equals out, is like really nothing in the online coaching space. Like the overhead of the online coaching space is almost a joke. And what you end up, investing in is subscriptions in
Yeah.
platforms and things, right? But like $10 here, $10 there. So why don't you just have the one-stop shop place? And when
Mhm.
I first got it, I switched from Kajabi to this.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just stared at it for like 2 months because it did so much that I was so overwhelmed, right? But then, like, as I needed it and I teetered with it and I learned things, right? And like now it's like the end all be all. I'm in it every single day. I couldn't function without it, right? But
Mhm.
it's never too early if you know the trajectory of where you're going and you will need these type of things to get it instead of doing that switch over like you're
Yep.
talking about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. So let's spend a few minutes talking about how does someone get clients. We have a few minutes left. We have you for a few more minutes. How what's marketing look like in coaching? Because it's a whole different ballgame.
It is. Yeah, it is a different ballgame. So with marketing, how do we get clients? Lead generation, it comes down to organic marketing or paid advertising, right? So I think people think that paid advertising can be like a magic wand, right? And that it's not that complicated, but it's a whole beast in itself to understand. I've seen a lot of women prematurely jump into paid advertising, thinking that it's a magic wand, and then they flush their money down the toilet because they haven't tested their messaging organically first to see what's landing with their audience, what's flopping, right? And then there's the whole back end of like, if you're using Facebook ads, right? And understanding like meta and even tracking like your, uh, your KPIs and your indicators. And it's just for later, is all I want to say, right?
Yep.
However, if you want to scale and you want to grow big time and you want to get booked calls in your sleep, you need paid advertising.
Yep.
You absolutely do. But I would recommend that you do organic marketing first. This takes a little bit longer. This takes more time, effort, right? This is really kind of like getting your hands dirty and doing the work, right?
Exactly.
But I think it's important. And then when you're at the point where you've done the work already, you're like, this messaging is done good. This messaging sucks and gets crickets. Like, let's not turn that into a paid ad. Let's take the messaging that did good. We know our audience, right? We know them in and out. We have an email list, right, that we can turn into paid advertising. Then it's time to allocate some dollars and start becoming omnipresent,
right?
And attracting that larger audience faster. So with organic marketing, I think the most important thing I can say is proven copywriting frameworks and strong call to actions.
Yep.
So first and foremost, you need to know your niche and you need to be very specific on who you're helping and how you're helping them. You need to know their pain points. You need to know their desires. So what do they want? People are always buying their way out of something, not into something. So especially if you have a high ticket coaching program, like your program can't be a nice to have or an addition to their life. They have to want to urgently and eagerly pay you because you're going to solve their problem.
Right.
So they need to like you, they need to trust you, they need to know you, and they need to know that you can solve their problem. Right. So that all has to come through in your messaging.
Right.
And yes, we need to post on social media, but it's not just consistency. It's about posting in a strategic, intentional way to move them along in the client journey. So most people think that posting is supposed to equal a paying client. That's not your first intention. Posting is supposed to get them to like you and trust you and know that you can solve their problem. And it's like getting their antennas going, like, who is this, right? Like poking around, and then you're inviting them to go deeper. And then maybe you're showing them some of your free content.
Right.
And now they're really starting to know you and like you and trust you. Right. And then you're inviting them to go deeper. And this is where the strong call to actions come into play. Like they need to be told exactly what to do. So like if you're on Instagram, it's like, come join my free Facebook group.
Exactly.
If they're in your Facebook group, it's like, I'm inviting you to a call.
Right.
And it's like, this is exactly how you can get to my Facebook group. This is exactly how you can get on my calendar.
Right.
Like they need to know exactly what to do next. Like click this button, type freedom, message this person this.
Exactly.
Very clear next steps for them.
Right. Right. We talk about that in therapy world, right? If your therapy website doesn't have a very clear, like, do this thing to get started, then you tend to lose people in the indecision of what to do next. And it's not because people are dumb. Like, we're not saying that. It's because our brains work in a certain way where if we're given one choice, then we're more likely to take that option. If we're given multiple choices, now we have to make a decision. And that can prevent people from reaching out. And so, like you said, like every piece of the way that you market to your audience, there is a clear next step, and you're funneling them, right? Different social medias into a free Facebook group, into a call. And as they funnel down, they are self-selecting right? I'm not convincing anybody. They are self-selecting because they know you, they like what you have to say, they want what you have to offer. And by the time they get to talking to you personally, they have already, in many cases, decided that they like you and want to work with you. And
Exactly.
it's similar to what we do in the therapy world, but it does require a bigger, broader reach and a more outlined trajectory, because it is this bigger, broader thing. People tend to search for therapy. In the coaching world, people are searching for a solution.
Yes.
And so you have to offer the solution and show that you have that, and that you have a certain approach to it. And they're going to decide if they like your approach. They're going to decide if they like you, and they're going to decide if they want to work with you. So you're not selling or you're not convincing anybody of anything. You're saying, here I am, and here's what I do. And you're doing it in such a clear way that they're like, I like you. I want to work with you. And you guys can see how I do this in my group, right? And no secret, no cloaking. I do this in my group. I have social medias. I have freebie opt-ins. I get people on my email list. I provide quality content for free. I show myself, and then people decide whether or not they want to work with me, and that's fine. And if I'm not the right coach for them, I say, here's some people that you can work with, because maybe they're a better fit for you. And so I think we adopt that same thing in the coaching world when we're doing like therapy related stuff as well.
Yeah. And you're inviting them to go deeper. I think that's the important piece. Is we can't forget that we have to be a walking billboard for our business, right? But we don't want to promote all the time. We want to, I say, give 80% value and promote 20% of the time. But you can't be afraid to share with people that you have an offer, right? And you can help them, and like extend the invite. And if it's for you, cool. And if it's not for you, that's cool too. Right. But you're not convincing anyone. I love that you said that. Myron Golden is somebody that I follow. I like, he's like top, like he always says, like, sales is such a noble profession. And he describes, sales as being like, we have convincing and we have persuasion. Convincing is like salesy, sleazy selling, where we're getting somebody to do something that would benefit us. And we don't want to do that. Where persuasion is getting someone to make a decision that they already wanted to make. So an informed decision that aligns with their goals, right? That's persuasion. And that is true, like sacred soul aligned selling, right?
Absolutely.
So
you're going to know when to say no. You're going to know when to say, you're not a fit for my program, actually.
Yeah.
That's great.
Love that.
Awesome. Well, I know we need to let you go. Wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. As I said before, guys, I'm going to be in Carly's group. I'm going to make sure that there's a link in the comments. I'm going to be in her group Thursday, 8:30 Pacific. So go join her group. She puts out really great content. Like, her free content is legit, guys, for real. So definitely check it out. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you on Thursday.
Sounds good. I love it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye, everyone.